Myrtle Waller, who at 97 years old still lives in Sheridan County, told me that this was the divisive anthem played during the Bolshevik funeral of Jenna Salisbury, teenage daughter of Sheridan County's communist sheriff, Rodney Salisbury. For most of the 20s, Salisbury was sheriff in Sheridan County, the northeasternmost county in Montana, where a person can turn 360 degrees and see nothing but wheat fields and a long, flat horizon. It's starkly beautiful, although the dust, rattling wind, and frigid winters were costly for early pioneers. Farming is still the main economic force there, as it was in the early part of the 20th century, when Plentywood, the county seat, was a new city, and brave settlers were figuring out how to coax a living from the unforgiving soil. Here we see a dust dune completely covering a fence in Sheridan County. Salisbury became popular with Sheridan County's Scandinavian immigrants who brought with them from Norway and Denmark a socialist consciousness. During the drought and difficult economic times of the 20s and 30s, the pioneer spirit became less robust and gave way to more socialist tendencies. Myrtle told me at the time that Ivan Doig showed up unannounced at her Plentywood home to ask for Myrtle's first-hand account of the communist movement in Sheridan County. He was researching for his book, Bucking the Sun, which included themes of socialism and politics in the era preceding the New Deal. Myrtle had attended that funeral I mentioned, and she told Doig that it was one of the events that led to the demise of the communist movement, which had dominated Sheridan County for nearly 15 years. During the funeral, there was no mention of God or hope of life everlasting. Instead, the funeral celebrated Janice as a comrade and glorified the People's Party. Also, Myrtle was able to tell Doig of the robbery of the courthouse in 1926. I'd always heard that story as a child because my Auntie Annie Hovitt, a county employee, was forced at gunpoint to lie on the floor while $105,000 was stolen from the vault. Myrtle recalls how Rodney Salisbury was implicated as being the inside connection for that robbery. Witnesses, when questioned by Salisbury and his deputies, said they went that way, and apparently Salisbury and his men then rode that way. Another influence on the people of Sheridan County during those years was the Producers News, a paper that proudly championed communist ideals and praised Salisbury whenever possible. Its founder, Charles Taylor, claimed that the paper was owned by farmer stockholders, the producers, but its detractors said it was simply Taylor's mouthpiece. Charles Taylor, who arrived from the East, brought with him his own socialist ideas and plans to influence not only Sheridan County, but all of Montana. The Producers News and Taylor lent energy to Salisbury's movement by challenging conventional economic beliefs held by Montanans. Salisbury was implicated by some, being a bootlegger, supporting a brothel, fraternizing with hoodlums, and being an all-around scofflaw. Others in the community believed that he disregarded unjust laws only and championed the downtrodden. The controversy around him was complicated, but surely it came in part from varying interpretations of his motives. For instance, farmers who used machinery to bring in their crops found themselves in far worse financial situations than those who still used animals. Those owing huge debts on machinery couldn't make payment when drought denied them a crop. The banks foreclosed on land and machinery. Salisbury organized the farmers not to bid on each other's items, and the bank sales became known as penny auctions, a term common throughout the country in those years. A combine might be sold for a fraction of its price, and the original owners could buy it back. Farmers might have found this heroic, but the banks probably had other opinions about Salisbury's actions. He also flouted convention when he had a love affair with a married woman, Marie Chapman Hansen, who already had a family with her husband. Rodney and Marie went on to have 3 children together while they were both married to other people. Those Norwegians and Danes who were struggling to make a living and experimenting with different ways of thinking about labor, ownership, and justice were influenced by Salisbury. But they also had a deep belief in Christianity and promises of an afterlife life and the general demand for morality regarding marriage and social mores. There was always rumors about Salisbury skirting the law and of his involvement in the robbery. His affair was not a rumor, but an unhidden fact. All of these scandals made Salisbury a controversial figure. But according to Myrtle, it was that unholy funeral with its red flags and its songs of solidarity that was the most shocking and unacceptable event for the community. Later that same year, 1932, Salisbury ran for governor of Montana on the communist ticket, but he didn't even carry his own county. So how can we, in 2013, know the truth about a man who lived 100 years ago? Well, Myrtle was an eyewitness and had gone to that funeral. She worked at the courthouse in the years after the robbery. So, while we might never know all the facts, surely we can trust the word of someone who knew this provocative character who inspired so much lore.